The topic for this week's shiur is a subject I've been mulling over for a very long time: friendship. Friendship is one of the major themes in Rambam's works. It actually ties into this week's Pirashah because the Torah records Yitzchak's Brit Milah this week. So what's the connection between Brit Milah and friendship, you may ask? For that, you need to listen to the entire shiur. Trust me, the material here is fascinating. For Rambam, friendship connotes something much larger than our casual usage of the term. And he does not mince words when it comes to describing the many and multi-layered benefits of forging and maintaining positive and healthy friendships. Friendship is dealt with in every one of Rambam's works. In his Perush La Mishnah, as we will see, in Sefer HaMitzvot, as we will see in the Mishneh Torah, in his Teshuvot and correspondences, and in his Moreh Nevuchim Guide to the Perplexed. I want to begin with the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, in chapter 1. The Mishnah says, Asei lecha rav, uknei lecha chaver. Rambam, in his Perush on the Mishnah, notes that the language of the Mishnah is significant. Asei lecha rav, make for yourself a rabbi. Asei means choose a rabbi, while the language for friendship is uknei lecha chaver. The term koneh in biblical and rabbinic Hebrew means to create, as in koneh shamayim va'aretz, creator of heaven and earth, or as we say in the Amidah, koneh hakol, he Hashem creates everything. In other words, friendship has to be created, formed. Or maybe the Mishnah is suggesting friendship must be earned. Unlike the term asei lecha rav, choose for yourself a rabbi, friendship involves a degree of work. One has to be proactive in forging friendships. One has to take initiative in forming those kinds of relationships that we call friendships. Rambam writes that one should do everything he or she can do to love another and be loved back. He quotes the rabbinic saying, Chavruta o mituta, give me friendship or death. Life without friendship is no life at all. When Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai asks his students, Tzeu ur'u, Eizo hi derech yeshara sheyavor lo ha'adam. He says to his students, go out into the world and come back and tell me, what's the path one should take to lead a meaningful life? 5 students report back. Rabbi Yoshua comes back and says, Chaver Tov, a good friend. Rambam, in his commentary, quotes Aristotle's 3 classes of friends. The first is friendship of utility, friendships that are useful and necessary. This is not self-serving. It's not narcissistic friendship, but rather friendships that are mutually beneficial in a practical way. The second is friendships that are pleasurable, a relationship that is comfortable, pleasurable. It may be satisfying in an emotional and practical way. The third is the perfect or ideal friendship, a friendship that is based on love, with no strings attached, completely unconditional. A friendship that is based solely on helping one another. Rambam offers an example of this kind of friendship, the love between David and Yonatan, as described in chapter 5 of Pirkei Avot. Ahava she'eina tiluya badavar, an example of an unconditional love that is David and Yonatan, because it was purely l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven. They loved each other despite the political implications of their destinies. Not everyone is zocheh to a friendship like David and Yonatan, so Rambam suggests another example of true friendship. For Rambam, the highest example of friendship that is achievable by everyone is the relationship and love between teacher and student. The Mishnah says, Yehi kevod talmidcha chaviv alecha keshelach. One should honor his students as himself. This is why, explains Rambam, the Chachamim were oftentimes referred to as chaverim, true friends, since their friendship is l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven. Here, Rambam writes in his Perush LeMishnah, and I want to read you a comment from his commentary on the Mishnah in Demai, chapter 2, Mishnah Gimel. The Mishnah says, HaMekabel alav liot chaver, one who chooses, accepts upon himself to be a chaver. Rambam explains, what is chaver? Korin lekol talmidei chachamim. This is what we refer to the talmidei chachamim, the scholars were referred to as chaver. Ve'kraum b'shem zeh, and why were they called chaver, friend? Mipnei shechavrutam zeh lazeh hi chaverut ha'amitit, because their relationship was a true chaverut, friendship. Mipnei shehi l'shem shamayim, because it was a friendship that was characterized as being always l'shem shamayim. Rambam reiterates this concept, this idea of cleaving to the Chachamim, being close to the sages, and he lists it as mitzvah number 6 in his Sefer HaMitzvot. Hatzivui shenitztavinu lehitarev bein hachachamim. We're commanded to be amongst these scholars. Uleitchaber itam, and to forge friendships with them. Ulehatmid velashevet imahem, and to stay close to them and sit with them. Uleishtatef imahem bechol derech midarkei hishtatfut. In any way possible, spend time, be close to the scholars. B'machal u'b'mishteh, when they eat, when they drink, and whenever they do whatever they do. It's been noted by scholars and rabbis how the mitzvah to cleave to the Chachamim appears so early on in Sefer HaMitzvot, alongside the mitzvot of belief in God, love of God, cleaving to God. Such a friendship between student and teacher ranks alongside the most important of mitzvot. Love of Hashem, cleaving to Hashem, and belief in Hashem. The truth of the matter is, though, there is a dangerous flip side to the relationship between student and teacher. When the friendship between teacher and student breaks down, the consequences can indeed be catastrophic. As Rambam explains in the third Mishnah of chapter 1 of Pirkei Avot, the Mishnah teaches of Antignos ish Socho. Antignos, from the town or the place of Socho. Antignos ish Socho kibel mi Shimon HaTzadik. He learned from Shimon HaTzadik. Al tiyu ka'avadim hamishamishim et harav. Al menat lekabel piras. One should not serve Hashem expecting a reward. Rather, Antignos taught, serve Hashem with no expectations. Rambam here introduces two students of Antignos who rebelled against Torah, rebelled against this teaching, and became a source of great grief to the Chachamim. For Rambam, the damage occurred as a result of a breakdown in the relationship between teacher and student. This tragic breakdown between teacher and student underlies the importance of friendship in the intellectual, religious, and spiritual realms. There's a third example of perfect friendship in Rambam. We discussed the ideal friendship like David and Jonathan. We also discussed the friendship and relationship between teacher and student. There's a third example Rambam brings of a perfect friendship, and that is close and loving family relationships. Rambam rejects the idea that we choose our friends but not our family. For Rambam, family falls into the category of friendships. Friendships that have to be earned, friendships that have to be worked on. Family relations don't just happen. Now, some of my listeners may be familiar with the Aristotelian ideas on this. That is not my interest now. My interest is how Rambam presents these ideas for us, his students. And here is where Brit Milah is linked to friendship. Rambam's Moreh Nevuchim, as you know, you've heard me say this many times, is divided into 3 sections. A big chunk of section number 3 of the Moreh is devoted to Ta'amei HaMitzvot, Rambam explaining reasons for all the mitzvot. The last chapter of this section, a chapter devoted to the reasons for mitzvot associated with marriage, prohibited relationships, and Brit Milah, and immediately prior to the concluding chapters of the Moreh Nevuchim, which are devoted to contemplative devotion and hashgacha, divine providence, Rambam writes the following regarding friendship. And I want to read to you from my Moreh Nevuchim. I'm reading for you chapter 49 in section 3 of the Moreh. Rambam tells us that he's going to explain laws on prohibited sexual relations, the interbreeding of beasts, and the commandment of circumcision. Rambam says the following: I say then, it is well known that friends are something that is necessary for man throughout his life. Aristotle has already set this forth in the 9th book of the Ethics. For in a state of health and happiness, a man takes pleasure in their familiar relationships with him. In adversity, he has recourse to them. In his old age, when his body has grown weak, he seeks their help. The same thing may be found to a much greater extent in the relationship with one's children and also in the relationship with one's relatives. For fraternal sentiments and mutual love and mutual help can be found in their perfect form only among those who are related by their ancestry. Accordingly, a single tribe that is united through a common ancestor, even if he is remote, because of this, love one another, help one another, and have pity on one another. And the attainment of these things is the greatest purpose of the law, says Rambam. Friendship, mutual love, helping one another, pity for one another are for Rambam the greatest purposes, the greatest reason for the Torah. Rambam here places friendship at the intersection between moral excellence, political competence, spiritual perfection, and the life of mitzvot. And so notice how Rambam brilliantly introduces this chapter with a note on the importance of friendship. Not casual friendship, but friendship that is forged by natural love, fraternal sentiments that are found among those who are related, not only biologically, but also by ancestry. I want to read to you another text in this very same chapter after Rambam explains the reasons for marriage, the reasons for all the prohibited relationships. Rambam delves into the reason for Brit Milah. And he says, according to me, circumcision has another very important meaning. Namely, that all people professing this opinion, that is, those who believe in the unity of God, should have a bodily sign uniting them. Now, a man does not perform this act upon himself or upon his son unless it be in consequence of a genuine belief. For it is not like an incision in the leg or a burn in the arm, but is a very, very hard thing to do. Rambam continues. It is also well known what degree of mutual love and mutual help exists between people who all bear the same sign, which forms for them a sort of covenant and alliance. Circumcision is a covenant made by Avraham, our father, with a view to the belief in the unity of God. Thus, everyone who is circumcised joins Abraham's covenant. The net that Rambam casts here is large. Ancestry. Even of those who are remote, you don't know them personally, and yet you feel a kinship. This is how Rambam defines friendship. In his teaching, he includes not only moral excellence, but political responsibility to care for the society of shared ancestry. This is the spiritual goal of friendship. It is about shared responsibility to care for those in the clan, in the family, all those we consider or we cast in this net of friendship. For Rambam, family includes a large net. This comment on friendship introduces a section that discusses forbidden relationships and marriage and Brit Milah. One would actually expect Brit Milah to be discussed alongside Mezuzah, Sefer Torah, and Tefillah, as it is placed in the Mishneh Torah, in the book of Ahava. Brit Milah in the Maimonidean economy of ideas has a dual function. Number one, it curbs the sexual desire. Rambam writes about this here in chapter 49 of section 3. But Rambam also tells us that Brit Milah, another of its purposes, is that it engenders a sense of belonging, a sense of camaraderie, even a sense of love for all those who share this powerful sign. Common ancestry is a powerful association for Rambam, and he even says this is probably the better of the two reasons. Allow me to add yet another dimension here. Avraham Avinu, the first person to have a Brit Milah per Hashem's command, was not just the father of the Jewish people. Rambam is clear, I just read it. Avraham Avinu is the father of everyone who is circumcised, every convert to Judaism. These are the words of Rambam. This beautiful message has halachic implications for Rambam. When he received a letter from Ovadiah Hager, Ovadiah the convert, Rambam was asked if, as a convert, he can recite the words in the Amidah, Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu, Elohei Avraham, Yitzchak ve'Yaakov, our God and the God of our father Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The convert wanted to know simply, being that he was not biologically a descendant of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, can he say these words with integrity? Rambam responds emphatically with yes. Of course. Avraham Avinu is not our father because of biology, but rather because of his teachings, which we adopted. Avraham is our ultimate teacher. And as we said earlier, The teacher is family. The teacher-student relationship is the ideal friendship relationship. In fact, the teacher slash rabbi, the halacha states, takes precedence over one's father or mother. Rambam rules based on the Gemara that if your father is drowning, God forbid, and your teacher is drowning, you must first save your teacher. Because parenthood is not biological, it is intellectual, it is spiritual. Now Rambam does qualify the ruling. If your biological father is also your teacher, then you must save him first. Clearly we see here that the definition of family is broad and large. One last point. I want to emphasize how all-inclusive this idea of friendship and family is in Rambam's works. One can read Rambam's entire commentary on the first chapter of Pirkei Avot as a discussion of friendship and family. And that we will leave for another time. But I do want to bring to your attention the last two chapters in Hilchot Deot of the Rambam. Hilchot Deot appears in Sefer Mada, the first of the books in the Mishneh Torah, where Rambam talks about character development. And the last two chapters in this section in Hilchot Deot are devoted to halachic manifestation of the idea of friendship. He begins chapter 6 with the following statement. Derech briato shel Adam. It is the nature of the human being liot nimshach b'de'otav uv'ma'asav, to be drawn, to have his character and his actions drawn, achareiav v'chaverav, drawn to his acquaintances and his friendships. V'nohei kiminhag anshei medinato, and he will behave like those he surrounds himself with, those living in his medina. He then argues this is why one should cleave to good people, to the chachamim and to the sages. Lefikach tzarich adam litchaber latzadikim. He then moves on to love one's fellow man and to love the convert, to refrain from hate, the obligation to rebuke a fellow man if he or she is doing something wrong. And this is an act of love and care. So if the rebuke will be rejected or have negative consequences, one should not rebuke. Rambam continues, one must care and take responsibility for the orphan and for the widow. Here friendship, again, has a political, social implication. Then he moves on to chapter 7, where he deals with correct speech and the prohibition of slander. How to behave socially is an important lesson in the mandate of uknei lecha chaver, earning friendship. Rambam, on his own authority, adds that these laws include resident aliens, those who observe the Noahide laws. I want to close with two lesser known comments of Rambam. The first is Rambam's response to Yosef ibn Jabbar from Baghdad, who wrote to Rambam and referred to himself as an Am Haaretz, an ignoramus. Why? Because he could only read Rambam's Arabic works. The gentleman did not know Hebrew. Rambam writes back and says, you are not an Am Haaretz, but rather a Talmid and a Chaver, a student and a friend. Rambam refers to Yosef ibn Jabbar as a Chaver. Why? Because he connected himself to Rambam's teachings. At the end of the the Moreh Nevuchim, Rambam writes a postscript to his student Yosef Waknin, the student for whom he wrote the Moreh Nevuchim. I want to read to you that postscript and how Rambam ends the Moreh Nevuchim. This is the extent of what I thought fit that we should set down in this treatise. It is a part of what I consider very useful to those like you. I hope for you that through sufficient reflection, you will grasp all the intentions I have included therein with the help of God. May He be exalted, and that He will grant us and all the people of Israel, being chaverim, being fellows, that which He has promised us. Then the eyes of the blind shall be opened, and the ears of the deaf shall be unstopped. For Rambam, we are linked as family by a belief, by an intellectual tradition, by a spiritual tradition. For Rambam, the net of friendship is so large, and it includes all of us. And that relationship comes with love, care, compassion, and with responsibility. Thank you for your attention. Of course, there's much more to say on the subject. We'll stop here, and Bezrat Hashem, we'll continue next week. Thank you.